Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we have Scott Meyers with Self-Storage Investing and Scott Flynn from Fishers, Indiana to talk about how he's acquired 14,000 doors and 2.4 million square feet of storage space. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm Steve Trang, sales trainer for some of the top wholesalers in the country, and I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. Question I get all the time is how to become a millionaire, and the information on this podcast alone is enough for you to become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you will take consistent action, you will become one. If you want to get there faster, send me a message on Instagram, and we'll see if we can help you get there just a little bit faster. If you get value out of this show, please tag her from below or share this episode right now. That way we can all grow together. And we do have a Black Friday special, so do tune in tomorrow and Friday to check out what we have in place for you guys. This is a live show, so please ask your questions for Scott to answer. You ready?
I am ready, Steve.
All right. So first question is, what got you into real estate?
You know, I think probably like many folks, they wanted to own their own business. Mine in the beginning was really just kind of a hedge against retirement through Wall Street. You know, I think everybody tells you when you are planning for retirement, you buy stocks and bonds, and you play through Wall Street. And after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I realized that was probably not the best way to go. So
yeah, I don't know if that's a scam. That might be too strong of a word, but I think there's some improperly set expectations with that.
Absolutely, yeah, because it is not passive like buying a stocks or bonds. But I started buying single-family houses, and then got into apartments, and then eventually into self-storage. But along the way, I always felt that, I did not want to be beholden to Wall Street and their returns, and not being able to meet the person who is making those decisions on behalf of my investments. Whereas with self-storages, as we know in real estate, you get to meet the manager. You walk down the stairs and you have a meeting with them, and you know exactly where your money's going and the decisions that are being made. Right.
So let's talk about your very first real estate deal. When was that?
So this was 1993, and it was a single-family house, and so this was back in the day. Steve, you may not remember, or you may not have run across this, but it was a VA assumable loan that we had. I think there's hardly any of those left out there.
Right.
So I assumed the loan. I didn't have to worry about my credit because I just took over the loan, and I had enough money that I took out a refinance on my own home, took out a home equity loan. That provided the down payment, and then I followed the Carlton Sheets program of rehabbing it, refinancing it, taking money out, and then renting it out, and then moved on to the next and the next after that.
So when you say Carlton Sheets, were you saying that in jest or in reality? Like that's who you were learning from?
In reality, yeah, that's who I was. But it always gets laughs out of people because everybody kind of goes back to the old grainy video days when he was on the beach talking to his successful folks. But if you follow the practice,
if you do the work,
it's a good foundation.
Yeah. Okay. So did you start with Carlton Sheets and then you find your first property, or you find your first property and then you looked out for?
Yeah, I think I was learning about real estate through Carlton Sheets and reading a few other books.
So was it like you saw him on an infomercial, or?
I think I did. I saw him on an infomercial, and then I bought his home study system. So I went online and ordered. Probably not online. I probably called on the phone and had the system ordered and shipped to the house.
Yeah, because I look today, like social media on Instagram, on Facebook, and whatever is kind of like today's version of the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. infomercials.
Absolutely, without a doubt. When people are looking, hopefully the teacher will appear, and that's what happened in my case.
Yeah. Okay. So you did your first deals with houses. Clearly, you didn't finish only doing single family residential. So what was after single family?
So we did. We had about 70 single family houses, and then didn't really have the freedom and the cash flow that Carlton had talked about. So we had a lot of tenants and toilets. So I thought, well, okay, better way to skin this cat is to get economies of scale. And started buying apartment complexes. And then assuming managers and management companies would handle that and spread the risk and diversify a bit, only to find that we had more tenants and toilets. And even though we had management companies, the buck stops here, and we were still writing the checks and making those decisions. So
you had managers, but it was not hands off. It's not hands free.
It never is. It's not mailbox money by any stretch. And so we had about 400 apartments and 70 houses at that point, and then realized, well, that was really about the time that the 1999 to 2000, the dot-com crash, that recession. Really what happened after that, the Community Reinvestment Act that the administration put in place, which allowed everybody to buy a house.
Right.
Whether they could fog a mirror and walk into the bank and roll all their debt in, they could buy a house. Well, all our tenants were leaving in droves, and who could blame them? It was the first time in history that they could buy a house.
So because of the massive adjustments in financing, a lot of the tenants that you had in place are no longer your tenants.
Correct. They were leaving and buying houses, and so we were making that switch of selling the apartments, and then but really now after doing a rehab on the houses, not as nice as you would for a retail sale, but now we had to redo it again and do a second rehab on these homes to get ready for a retail sale since the market had shifted. So we were selling those off.
Oh, so not only were your tenants in your apartments leaving, but all the people that were renting the houses, you need to rehab again to sell.
Correct.
Got it.
And that puts a little strain on the cash flow and on our capital. And so at this point, I realized that probably best that I don't want to be beholden to those cycles in real estate and the challenges of tenants and toilets. So we looked around the landscape, and it's either parking lots or self-storage if we want to be in real estate without tenants. And there's not a lot of value to be created in parking lots, and that's how we landed in self-storage.
Can't really force the appreciation.
No, not much.
You can force other people to build around you, but that's about it.
Correct. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you start self-storage?
2005 is when we bought our first self-storage facility, and that was actually an industrial building. It was a flex building that we added storage to it, and saw how the model began to work. And then I really did a deep dive into learning about the business, and then bought my first true 100% self-storage facility in 2006 with a partner.
Got it. So right now, you look at self-storage, there's only a handful of people out there, but it seems like a lot of arrows point to you. Were you the pioneer, or you just did more than it?
Yeah, well, I think it was the best kept secret. I don't think anybody wanted to let it out. And so I was looking for, somebody to really walk us down that path. And there really wasn't dare I say, Scott Meyers, or there wasn't anybody teaching it. There was consultants, and you could go to the associations and their annual meetings, but there wasn't anybody who was a guru per se, or somebody that was teaching people how to do it, walking down the path from A to Z. So I had to learn that on my own.
So how did you learn on your own?
Going to those shows and then talking to the people, and just they were in the business, and asking them, what did you like best about the business? What don't you like about the business? How did you get started? And then finally, when we were getting ready to pull the trigger, there's more commas than zeros in commercial real estate. So I did hire a consultant and spent a day with him, making sure my business plan was solid, and looking at my pipeline and the deals that I had, and then still was reaching out to him and contacting him from time to time to make sure that I crossed my T's and dotted all my I's.
Right. So you start doing your first deals in self-storage. What were some things you learned that you did not know going into it?
Yeah. So, in commercial real estate, in apartments, self-storage is very, very similar. Working with in terms of underwriting and drilling down to an NOI and a cap rate. So the valuation piece was very similar. What I didn't understand or know was all of the income streams and then all of the expense items. So if a broker were to present something to me in the beginning, I assumed that all the expense items were accounted for, and so only to find out that there was a few that were hidden. And fortunately, we didn't make any grave mistakes before we actually bought anything, but it is a little different animal. And then
there were some disclosure challenges.
There were some disclosure challenges, yes, so to speak, and that goes for any form of real estate, just knowing to dig in. But then really the operation side, it is a different animal. It operates more like retail than renting out units, where somebody is looking in habitational real estate for a neighborhood, or what is around it, proximity to anything and everything. Whereas with storage, it's really more of a commodity, and it's needs based. You need to answer the phone. It needs to be clean, it needs to be secure, it needs to be priced right. And then, if it checks those boxes and you make it accessible and easy for someone to rent a unit online or by the phone, you're going to get the business.
Okay, so let's take a step back here. You're talking about operation. You said it's more like retail, is that what you said?
Well, many folks in the industry call it a store, at the store, because there is an office that is in the front of the
So when you say it's more like retail, it's like going in and like buying a laptop.
Yeah, it is. The process is so simple, and because it is more like a commodity, that we have kiosks in our facility. Movie at a Redbox rental, you can now go rent a unit at a storage facility in that same manner.
It's that easy.
It's that easy.
Got it. Okay, so operational challenges. So what did you not know, and what did you do to fix those challenges?
Yeah, I think understanding that from a marketing standpoint, that you got to win the game online. When somebody is looking for storage, this is a commodity. And so
this is 2006 you figured this out?
Yeah, this is 2006, and then understood the importance more as I got into the business and that what it takes to win the game. And so it's needs based, it's demand based. When businesses downsize, people downsize, there's trauma, there's transition in people's lives. That's when they begin looking for storage. We don't advertise in a Val pack where there's a coupon and somebody thinks, oh, well, I'll save that coupon for when I need storage, like a haircut or dry cleaning. It doesn't happen until somebody actually needs it. So we spend money on the back end understanding how it works with regards to ads and being found, so that when somebody is looking in a search, that we beat our competition, because we have to answer it. They're checking the box to go to take care of this. It's more of a to-do or a chore for somebody in the house to do this than it is to make a decision of school systems, neighborhoods, things of that nature.
This is something where the wife tells the husband, hey, go figure this out.
Usually it's a wife saying, I'm going to get your stuff out of here, and she wants to save, secure, and very quick and check it off her list of busy things to do. And then she tells her husband to put her stuff in it, and here's the key, here's where it is.
Oh, so she's the one that's going out there. So you know the avatar.
Yeah. We do know the avatar. Yep, it's mom who gets stuck with it, or that role in the household, if you will.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like then this industry is more marketing based than it is sales based or service based.
That's correct, because it is needs based, and it's we just need to be found. And now, when people do walk into the office or the store, there is an upsell, or if they do happen to call the call center, the sell is to reserve a unit or to make an appointment to go in and take a look, or to just go into the to the facility. And then upsells along the way for the renter's insurance or tenant insurance, if they need any locks, boxes, moving supplies, and things of that nature. But that's really the extent of the sale. But as we tell our folks, they came in there for a reason. They should never leave. You need to pry them out of my cold.
There's a
hands.
need.
There's a need.
Got it. No one's just like, hey, one day I'm gonna get a storage unit.
Right. Or I'm just shopping around. They want to check it off the list. So if it meets all those needs, they just want to be done with it.
Okay. So let's talk about your journey. So you get your first one, which you added to, and the second one in 2006, where it was a complete full storage. What about your next few units? Yeah,
so the next, we're value add in anything that we do, which I think most real estate investors are. And so value add comes in two forms. Usually in an existing facility, we're raising rates, we're raising occupancy, adding the marketing where the mom and pop owners didn't have it in place. And then if there is additional land on those sites, we always want to be able to expand and add more square footage. So that's one way. With development, you start with a piece of dirt or a piece of land, and you build value by building the buildings and adding an income stream. So the model in the beginning was looking at existing facilities, mom and pop traditional sites where they had fallen behind, didn't have the marketing in place, didn't have a website. They were 100% full because we just want to stay full. We've never raised rates in 10 years, which is always music to our ears. And exactly. So we come in and turn around the management, raise rates, add occupancy where there's low occupancy, the marketing, and then if we can add additional units, we do that as well. And then locks, boxes, moving supplies, renter's insurance, and any of those other ancillary income streams that we can add. So that was the model for a number of years. And then we started, looking into development. And that's when we got really good at syndication and bringing in private equity so that we could take on some of those larger projects that were coming across our desk in our marketing efforts for facilities.
Got it. So how did you find your very first deal?
Yeah, very first deal was through a mailer. Direct mail still works. Number 10 envelope, hand stamped, hand addressed, looks like a letter from mom, and a letter in it that's very succinct. That says, when you're ready to sell, give us a call. We can save you commissions, and whether it's now or in the future, we're flexible. Whatever that looks like, but give us a call, and we would send those out over and over and over again in our market, once a quarter, until we bought the facility or until they told us to stop or until they died. One of the three.
So one thing that's always fascinating, and this is like totally like a limiting belief on my part, because we buy houses all the time, right? But it's curious to me because I think in commercial real estate, all the agents have to be cold callers, right? They cut their teeth cold calling.
Correct.
And so your competition is probably another commercial agent that wants to list self-storage. So how are you winning versus that guy?
We're both out there doing the exact same things. You're right. So the brokers are our competitors, and they are also a funnel for us. They fill our funnel. So we want our letter to land on the desk of somebody who's considering selling that may not want to or can't pay the commission, and they feel that they can do this on their own. And that's our letter says as such. If you want to save yourself commissions, and give us a call. The brokers out there doing the exact same thing. I am the king and queen of this city, and I sell more self-storage facilities than anybody else, and I will get you top dollar more than anybody else, and I will vet the people sending you letters. I mean, their story is anti-us, and ours is anti-brokers. So it really depends upon the seller. Do they say, I don't want a bunch of looky-loos and answer these letters with a bunch of unqualified folks that I have no idea who they are, if they have the wherewithal, or go under contract, if they can't perform. I'm only going to go with an agent. And the other folks are, as I mentioned, they don't want to spend the money for commissions. They'll give it a try. They have time. They're in no hurry. I got this letter. Maybe he'll give me $1 million more than what I think the facility is worth, and so they'll call us.
Right.
So at the same time, we're always talking to the brokers and saying, hey, for the stuff that's really difficult and that can't pencil out from an underwriting, or it's not bankable and you won't get commission, then give us a call, and we'll talk about a reduced commission or a flat fee, and they funnel those deals our way as well.
Got it. So what percentage of your deals would you say is coming from your own marketing, and what percentage of your deals are coming from commercial agents?
Yeah, probably 3 buckets to be safe. Our own marketing is about 20% now. It used to be 80% in the past, but since we started our education company now, a lot of joint ventures come our way. So people bring deals to us.
Got it.
I speak at the trade shows, and we write for Forbes magazine, and so we have a lot of people that know who we are now. And I'd say maybe 10%, 10 to 15% or so are coming from the brokerage community, but they know that we can close, and so we do get first crack.
So a majority of your business is just because you are the guy.
Yeah,
it's a great place to be.
We're in a good position,
yeah.
And I don't take that for granted.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so what were some other challenges moving up? I mean, so you sourced your first deal, direct mail piece, second deal, also direct mail piece?
Yeah, it was. In that point, then we began, a lot of the brokers were bringing us deals at that point, but we were still finding projects on our own from our own direct marketing efforts. And then it was about that time when we began to teach. I used to run a real estate investment group in Indianapolis, and teaching people about the business. And then at that point, they were going out and finding deals, and that were either too big for them to take down, or they had too many deals. And then they brought them to us, which is simultaneously, we knew that we had to begin learning how to raise private equity, or those opportunities would fall off the desk. And so,
well, I was going to go to my next question. So maybe this is it. Like, what are some major challenges in starting self-storage? Because could someone today, never done a real estate transaction yet, tomorrow start doing self-storage?
The answer is yes. I don't ever want to deter anybody, but also you need to begin thinking about building your team, and one of those folks on your team is most likely somebody, a good rich uncle, or somebody that a partner that has some funds behind them, or can raise private equity. Because with any form of commercial real estate, there's more commas and zeros to be able to purchase it, and so usually people are either one and done, or they may not have enough available their own funds, so their own equity to put into a project where they have to bring on somebody from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, so your challenges then. So you said you had to start seeking private equity. So what was that like?
Yeah. So necessity, otherwise those deals would fall off our desk, and so at that point, if the time when you need money is, usually when people start looking for it, and you need to be building your private equity list or your treasure chest of those folks long before that. And so the biggest challenge was when we had these opportunities coming our way, our list wasn't big enough. It was truly friends and family. They were saying, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And then navigating through that world with the help of an SEC attorney and a consultant to, learn what that looks like, to make sure that we're safe, and then also what are the norms, what does this look like, and how to do the splits, and all the other things that are involved in the art and science behind raising private equity.
So let's just put this in perspective. If you're saying more commas than zeros, what is a typical self-storage deal look like financially?
Yeah, I'd say for people that are starting out, and including ourselves, the projects that we're looking at were anywhere between $600,000 to right about 1.2. That seemed to be kind of our sweet spot, landing there. And same thing with a lot of our students that we were teaching. So again, we've got the REITs, the big guys, the public storage, U-Haul, Extra Space. They're multi-million-dollar gleaming Class A self-storage facilities. And then down here are the rural facilities, 10, 15, 20 units out in the middle of nowhere without a lot of activity, a lot of growth or opportunity to create value. Our sweet spot's right in the middle. We play in that sandbox in between the two, where it's still the mom and pop owners that aren't very sophisticated that we're going after. And so that's in that $600 to $1.2 million project size. So from that standpoint, we're getting 75, 80% LTV loans. The balance is the down payment, and then bringing in our private equity and doing the math equation to make sure that they were getting the returns that are commensurate to, the risk that they're taking and what's favorable in the market.
So typically you're looking for someone to put 20 to 25% down.
Correct.
of 600,000 to 1.2.
Correct.
So just rough numbers, if we're saying $1 million, you're looking for someone that is a private equity partner that has 200,000 to 250,000 available to help you as a down payment.
Yep. In an ideal world, it would be one person stroking the check, but in our syndications, it's multiple people with a $50,000 minimum. So we're setting up a private placement memorandum, a Reg D, 506B or 506C, and our minimums are typically $50,000 for people to come in. So it's multiple partners that we're coming into these projects.
And syndication is a whole nother world. That's a whole different episode.
It certainly is, yes.
So let's talk about then. What are some other major challenges along the way to get? I mean, 14,000 doors is not or 14,000 units is not a small feat.
Yeah, well, probably the biggest is, outside of growth, is then how to manage this. I'm in Indianapolis, and we're buying facilities now all around the country, and that started happening pretty quickly. People were bringing projects to us, and our mantra has always been, well, we can go anywhere because every facility is just as close as our local airport. But in reality, you can't walk the four corners of your business when it's all across the country. So you have to have, good lieutenants that are the GCs that are building these, the folks that are turning them around or transitioning the management, but then the ongoing management. So it was really picking good management companies, and that's not very easy to do. At the end of the day, you're giving up management to a third-party property management company. And you and I both know nobody cares 1% as much about your property, no matter what it is, as you do. So those management companies, they're in it for fees. They're not doing it,
not
for
because
free.
they love you,
not because they love us. And so that is, it's not their first and foremost. I mean, they do have a reputation, but it's not on maximizing revenue for the owner like it is on ours. So we've had to go through a few. Some that we trust that we can take nationwide, or we know in a certain part of the country, who we can bring in to manage those facilities. But we still have to add a layer of management on top of that, our asset managers that are driving those management companies to make sure they're hitting their numbers for our investors and for us.
So potentially different property managers, or do you call them property managers?
Property management companies.
Property management companies. So you have different property management companies in different areas. So
Correct.
Not necessarily one nationwide company.
No.
And then one internal management company to manage all the property management companies.
Yeah, so that's the challenge in getting everybody on board and understanding it us and maximizing revenue.
And there's still enough juice in there.
There is if we buy the right deals, but again, the position that we're in, we get a chance to look at some of the sweetest deals out there.
So what does the right deal look like?
We need to, going into a project, we need to see that there's at least a 2x return on our money within 4 to 5 years. That's we know going into it. If we buy something for $500,000 and we have to put $200,000 into it, I need to be selling it for 1.4. That has enough juice in it to be able to get enough, the pot of money at the end after that is big enough to give enough to my equity partners to get them the internal rate of return that they want, and it has to be worth my time for what we're putting into it in the meantime to get it up to that place in 4 or 5 years.
So internal rate of return. Let's elaborate on what that means.
Sure. So a return is a return is a return. So a 2x equity multiple, a 2 times return means I'm doubling my money. The internal rate of return is tied to time. So if I get a 2x multiple or I double my money in 2 years, that's fantastic. An IRR of 30, 40%. If it takes 5 to 7 years to get that, my internal rate of return is 13, 14, 15%. It's less. So the quicker that I can return money to my investors and they can redeploy into another project, the more money that their money is actually making for them. If it takes longer to do so, they still get their 2x multiple, but they could have been in another project where they could have been continuing to multiply.
Yeah, so they could have done their 2x multiple somewhere else faster. Correct. If you're not properly managing or not necessarily buying correctly.
That is correct.
Got it. Any other major struggles or points where you're like, what the heck am I doing when you're doing the self-storage journey?
Oh, I guess it probably revolves around hiring, period, just internal staff. I like to think that I'm a good judge of character, only to find out I'm not. And so
you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, correct. So
we're generally lousy judges of character.
I think so as well. So finding somebody to do the hiring for us in that process, we learned a lot by going through Traction and deploying the entrepreneur operating system in our business, and still doing that for a number of years before we were introduced to Traction. But at the end of the day, hiring on core values, and as Jim Collins puts it, getting the right person in the right seat on the bus. And so many times, I've deviated away from that, thinking, well, that person's a rock star. bring them in, and they'll catch what we're doing here in our culture, only to find out that they're a cancer. And my other folks are ready to leave, and it's just a broken machine. And 90 days down the road, we're making that hire again. So I think that's probably been the biggest challenge is staying true to it, and the times I've deviated away from our core values, and knowing that I need to hire on that first, and we'll teach the rest.
It's amazing how many times we have to learn that lesson sometimes.
Yes, it is.
All right, it's like, hey, this time we're going to make an exception. This time the succession will be okay.
And I have to say, I've been at this for a while, in real estate since 93 and storage since 05. And it was really up till just this last year where I feel that we've got a solid core team where everybody is, we're in sync.
Yeah, and it feels great when you finally get there.
Yes, it does.
So if I were to today, right, I say, Scott, you know what? Hold my hand. I want to get into self-storage.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you would tell me?
There's a lot of folks that can do this on their own, but they're usually buying a smaller facility, which means it's difficult to manage, as we mentioned. So
because of economies of scale?
Economies of scale, they're going to be self-managing, because these management companies, they won't take on a self-storage facility unless they're getting 5 to 6% of the revenue coming in, or either $2,000 to $2,500 roughly a month in management fees. Well, some of these smaller facilities, that's just over payroll, and put those management companies in place. And so finding a facility in that size where you can have a management company in place, otherwise trying to do all of that on your own, that's where many people stumble and fall. So smaller facilities, very difficult to do, but getting into the larger facilities, then that's more commas and zeros, and that limits people to get into the business. And then the banks, they these days, they want to see that you've got some experience, not just real estate, but they want to see storage experience. If not,
really?
Then they want you to bring in a partner. So it can be a true partner. It could be somebody like myself. I take a small piece of equity in some of these projects and the LLCs to be on the board or part of the general partnership in these facilities. And so we do that for our students and some of our other joint venture partners. So I think in the beginning, finding a facility that's large enough to be able to hire a third-party property management company, being able to get into one that size, having the money, and then a partner or the ability to get the banks to say yes to you. So those are, I think, the challenges facing folks that are looking to get into it in the beginning.
And if I didn't have money, or I'm sorry, if I didn't have the private equity partners, how much would I need to get started?
I'd say you probably should be in that $100,000 range to $200,000 range if you want to do it on your own. But then again, your first deal can be a joint venture. You bring the deal and you bring some equity and you divvy up the responsibilities. And then again, it's all a math equation and putting together the operating agreements. Here's the roles and responsibilities of the person getting in to begin with versus somebody experienced and what they bring to the table as well.
So what would that look like as far as a joint venture? Because I think that's one of the best ways to learn is to have someone mentor you. It's like, hey, don't do this. This is dumb. Do this, whatever. Like, hey, you're not thinking about this.
Yeah.
So what does a joint venture look like? If I had a deal, I was like, Scott, let's work on this together. What does that look like?
Well, I would say somebody starting out, you're a pretty savvy guy, obviously, Steve. And other folks that come to us many times, they'll say, hey, Scott, I found this fantastic deal. Well, first of all, opportunities aren't always deals, and so we'll look at this opportunity and they'll say, well, I'm broke, my credit is shot, I can't do the due diligence because it's 2 states away and I've never done a deal before, so can we do this deal and then in a partnership and split it 50-50 and you bring all the cash and the lending and the property management and everything else? And to which we say no, that's more of a
that's brokering.
That's brokering. That's a wholesale deal. We'll give you a finder's fee for that.
Yeah.
But understanding if you bring money but your credit may be a little dinged, or the bank wants somebody else to come in, we bring some money in a true 50-50 partnership. I bring the management. You can manage the construction, and because you're located in that town to oversee that, that we divvy up the responsibilities and the capital, and then we understand what the splits are on that end. And then all the way to the other end, some people bring me in, when just all the bank needs is somebody in with a little bit of experience that I can provide, and that's how I step in at that point. So somebody looking to come in the beginning, most likely, if they can do it on their own, fantastic, and always try to until you can't, and then look for somebody to come in. We also have some folks that invest with us in our syndications as a passive investor, and they'll invest $50,000 to not only come along for the ride, but they learn while they earn in it as well. And they watch our webinars, they get our reports, they understand exactly what we're doing in the beginning. They can ask any and every question. They're owners, so they get to go out and fly out, drive out, and they get to see it, touch it, feel it. Talk to the management companies, and they understand. And then as an equity owner, even if it's a small amount, then when it comes time for them to do their own, they can stand tall, put their shoulders back and their head up high, and talking to bankers and brokers and private equity partners and say, yeah, I'm in the business already,
Right.
and they are, and then that opens doors and allows them to then get into their first facility on their own without the use of somebody else.
So I heard you mention earlier, you come in as a general partner. So I think before I ask my question, can you explain what a general partner is versus also a limited partner?
So in syndication terms, when we create the operating agreement, the limited partner are our equity investors, and so limited in that they're not making any decisions. They're writing the check. They have shares of ownership, and they get to, basically they get to attend the webinars and receive the money, and that's it. They can certainly put input, give input, but they don't have any right or ability to influence that.
They get to say, but they don't have weight.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, if things go awry, then they can all get together and there's a mechanism to remove somebody. But by and large, the general partners then, that's the management team, that's the executive level team. Those are the person or the people that are then calling the shots and driving the direction, and they are given carte blanche, the ability to drive the entire project.
Got it. And okay, so then, and you are the general partner side.
That is correct.
And the reason you're the general partner versus limited partner is?
Because that's the only way I'll have it. I don't need anybody else's input. I'm the one with the experience. And if you muddy things up, if there's somebody that comes in on the general partner side, like we said, if there's somebody that's new to the business and they bring me in, we're making decisions jointly. And if there's three of us, there's a way to be able to, a quorum for all decisions. Or if there's two of us, there's a way to be able to make decisions, but understanding our roles and responsibilities. But we're the ones driving it. And the limited partners, again, are just along for the ride. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I wanted to have my team, right, because you mentioned that the team is really crucial here. What does a team look like if you're running a self-storage ownership company?
Yeah, so pure ownership on that end, it's an asset manager, who is making sure that that we're hitting our marks. They're overseeing the property management company, making sure that leasing, the velocity is as we expected and meeting our projections, that we're raising rates at the right amount of time. We have KPIs all across the board for our tenant insurance penetration, our retail sales, and then always keeping an eye on disposition and interest rates and cap rates as to when we need to exit. So that's the asset manager's role. In our syndications, there's the fund manager, and so the bookkeepers and our investor relations. So they're keeping an eye on all the money that comes in, disbursements, distributions going out, doing the bookkeeping on a regular basis, K1s at the end of the year, and then tax returns. And so they're handling that piece. Assistants along the way that assist as well. And then, there's some folks that are internal, but mostly external that are going out and sourcing deals for us. I have a person that we send all underwriting to on our staff. He vets all deals, runs it through our software because we know the formulas are good, and because we've tested them over and over again. And then outside of that, HR, the piece that we offload as well, which is certainly hands.
So someone to manage the assets, someone to go hunt and find more assets, and someone to take care of the money.
Essentially, yep.
Got it. All right. Why self-storage?
Wow. How much more time do we have?
Okay, at least half an hour.
I have a top 10 that we've used in our, education side of the business. But really, comparing asset classes, it does extremely well during a recession. It's very recession-resistant. It's very inflation-resistant. Nothing is recession-proof. But as I got into looking into the business, that's what came up over and over again from the folks that I talked to is that when the economy goes through a turn and a downturn, businesses downsize, individuals downsize if they've lost their job, and if they've given up a housing payment of whatever type for $1,600 and they move back home, or they're splitting rent with a friend, there's still some goods that are going to go in storage until things turn back around for them again. Well, they can afford $100 to $125 a month if their total housing number has gone down.
Right.
Businesses, we saw during the pandemic and also during a recession where they lose their lease or they lose a building, they've got inventory, they've got office furniture, very similar to individuals. They put it in storage until things turn back around again. Death, divorce, bankruptcy. I mean, we're in the trauma and transition business.
Yeah.
Baby boomers that are aging, they're downsize their homes. They go into assisted living, they downsize again, and then when they pass on, we settle the estate. several things go into storage again because the kids don't want it in their own house, but they can't get rid of it, so it goes into storage. So there's a number of drivers, but it's solid. It's up and to the right, and then during a recession, in a pandemic, it's a hockey stick effect. During the pandemic, people were sent home from work, so they had to clear out the kitchen, a portion of the dining room or a bedroom to work, and then the kids came home from school, same thing. So then the businesses that shut down, all of this happened at the same time. It created a huge demand for self-storage. We're an essential business. We're running these with kiosks, as we talked about earlier, and so we never skipped a beat. All along the way, we're able to service our customers, and so from that standpoint, it continues to do very well. It's very solid, and it's not affected by the economic cycles.
It sounds kind of like people that run mortuaries. It's like there will always be a need.
There will always be a need. Yeah, it is a very recession-resistant. Mortuaries and the liquor industry in our country, are always solid throughout, and then self-storage are right up there in the top 5.
Well, they're saying there might be a shortage of liquor.
That could be a problem.
There could be some problems once we have a shortage of liquor. Yeah, I heard the supply chain issues. They might be running 2 months behind on liquor. Yeah. So let's talk about avatars. Like who are you finding for self-storage? Like how do you find a person that would be a good candidate, or do you just mail everybody all the time?
To buy a facility from? Yeah, we have a mailing list that we buy, and we continue to scrub then our internal database. And so there's certain markets that we're targeting, and then also as soon as we buy a facility in one market, then we're really hammering that same market so we can get more economies of scale, getting more facilities in that location. So when we buy a list or when we have a list, what we scrub out are the REITs, so the public storage, U-Haul, Extra Space. We're not going to buy their facilities, and they're not going to entertain a letter from us. They're always selling through a broker, so that's wasted.
Well, not only that, I learned that REITs don't need to make money, so it's a really different business model.
It truly is. Yeah, the cap rates that they're buying at is nutty, but
but it works.
But their cost of capital is lower than mine as well. So we continue to send over and over again, and even still, some of these facilities are the regional companies or the national companies that aren't a REIT. They're buying in bulk. They're buying portfolios, and every once in a while they'll have a dog that they have to take on, and it doesn't match their business model. Or it's something they just agreed to scoop up and take because the seller had it. And if we are, in that place where we can dispose of that for them and take it off their hands, then, we may take that on because that's a business that we're in. We're not buying turnkey. We're providing the turnkey to somebody else that wants to buy it along the way. And if it's something that we internally, my company doesn't want, then we've got this entire student database that, we'll pass it down to them. And so that's the benefit they have of working with us, is that we provide opportunities to them that fall off our plate.
Now you said that you're buying lists, but is there like what I can say if I was looking for a distressed homeowner, right? Is possibly someone that's widowed or has faced recent financial distress. If you're talking about self-storage, are you looking at someone that's like looking to retire, looking to pass off to their kids? Like who is that?
Not really, because that's a little tougher data to get. That's the data that we gather after contacting those folks. So that's kind of our internal database. At the beginning, it's truly just a list of self-storage facilities of this size. But we don't know the owner, because half the time we don't know. It's an LLC, and so we're having to go through and try to pierce the LLC. Pierce is a bad word, but trying to find the person who owns the LLC and send letters to them. If not, then it lands at the facility. But we just continue to do that over and over again until we get a hold of somebody by phone, because a mailer's only as good as a follow-up phone call, and then try to find out the owner, and then, hey, are you looking to sell? If so, when? And continue that conversation. But that's how we find out that data. That really isn't out there in any other database other than our own. Yeah.
So there's a couple other things I want to talk about before we open up the questions.
Sure.
So you and I met through Collective Genius. Why are you in Collective Genius? And then after that, we'll talk about the power of masterminds.
Sure. So I've been in CG for about 5 years now. And I think, again, speaking to many entrepreneurs out there, my staff, I have no staff that's in my city. I don't have an office. Everybody is virtual, and they're all around the country. And so somebody to sit back and talk about, how do I work on the business? And talking with other folks that are in real estate, we're affected by the same trends in self-storage, but just seeing how other people built their businesses and what they're looking at. So it's more for data gathering, and then also just building a business that is in real estate. I don't learn a lot per se in the actual, art and science behind rental houses anymore, or apartments, or wholesaling, or wholetailing, that per se. But I can learn an awful lot from folks like yourself and others in there that are doing a lot of transactions and building a business from a hiring standpoint, from business models, from KPIs. All those things are all the same, and that's just really business in general. So there's a few sessions that I might skip over, but at the end of the day, the relationships and the things I'm learning from it, just a pure business standpoint from the individuals in that room is key.
Has it helped at all with the syndication?
It truly has, yep. In more ways than I had anticipated. So there's some other folks, syndicators, some other folks that are running hedge funds that I can run ideas past instead of having to always pay for that and maybe not get a 100% truthful answer, or the 99%, that everybody gives, but the 1% they keep. And in collective genius, it's a little bit different. You sit down and talk with somebody, and everybody will divulge because we're all friendly competitors.
Right.
So that standpoint, some folks that have invested in our projects, which I never would have anticipated as well, but really just how to drill down and learning from what others have done, other syndicators, everything else that they've tried and that we try. We can come together and just collectively get together and see what the pulse of the market is, so we can all be better.
Yeah. And you run your own mastermind?
Correct.
Okay. Why should someone join your mastermind?
Well, ours, of course, everybody's mastermind is different. Ours is strictly self-storage, and although we're sharing best business practices, from the beginning, it was really all about deal flow. So, our mantra is deal flow, community, capital, and deal flow. And so we do a lot of joint ventures in there. We share a lot of our equity partners, and we do learn from each other. But like any mastermind, we're going through life together, business life and personal life, and again, sharing best business practices on how to get better. But at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of folks doing what we do, and if everybody out there is finding too many deals or too big a deal, then we can pool our resources together and do a lot of joint ventures, a lot of wholesaling, a lot of business with each other. But then also having a group of folks together in the self-storage industry that is under one umbrella. Allows me to, it opens a lot of doors for myself and my business to say I represent this group of folks, and so we get discounts in different areas. We can talk to lenders. It just opens a lot of doors in the community when we represent, when we go forth as a representative of the mastermind. Got it.
And then what I'm also really fascinated by is the fact that you love traveling to build houses.
Yeah, we do.
Let's talk about that.
Well, as a matter of fact, I just got back from Mexico. Our family did. We took 45 people down to Ensenada, Mexico. It's about an hour and a half south of Tijuana. And we partner with an organization called YWAM, Youth with a Mission, and their Homes of Hope organization. And for the past, since 2013, we've been building houses and giving them away. And taking those 45 people, those are all friends, family, coworkers, staff folks, our students, joint venture partners, basically anybody that wants to go on one of these short-term, family-friendly 4-day mission trips with us and build a house in 2 of those 4 days, we'll pay for it. All you need to do is get to San Diego.
But there's got to be a purpose behind it. I mean, you didn't just one day decide, I'm going to start building houses in Mexico.
Well, there's, I think, hopefully a greater purpose in all of us. I get into real estate because we wanted to have some free time and some available cash to go do fun things. And then when I got married and we had kids, we wanted real estate to be the vehicle that allowed us to raise our kids and to be able to homeschool and travel and be on the mission field. And so it was a culmination of that, and just being obedient and then tithing 10% of our profits in our real estate businesses that allowed us to be able to give back and take people on and just leverage that by having these entrepreneurs come down, get a sense of it, and then they can go forth and do the same.
But I mean, you're going the extra mile though, right? I mean, like a lot of people, the shortcut is I'll just donate money and I feel good about it. Yeah. Right. Then there's like, I'm going to go donate my time. And then there's, I'm going to lead a group of people to go do this. There has to be some other additional thing behind it.
I think we recognize, as a good friend of both of ours has mentioned, with God's blessing comes responsibility, and He has had His favor on our business, and we have a responsibility, and it's not to crush it and buy an island or have a Ferrari or anything else, but we measure things in terms of houses, and we know how much it takes to build a house, and when we have that, we can take on more people to give them that experience, to end generational poverty one family at a time, but then also we recognize the influence that we have doing this.
Right.
speaking from stages and teaching and having a voice and writing and doing those things that we can change the world just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so with that excites me more than anything else. And having that open hand, God allows more to flow through it, and our businesses flourish as a result. So long as we keep giving a good portion of it back and showing others how to do it as well, there's a ripple effect, and it's multiplying.
That's awesome. So on Reddit, can you ask him how you can find viable deals in today in tremendously compressed cap rate markets?
Yeah, well, I think you know that it's a tremendously compressed cap rate because you're looking at listings by brokers, and we don't. Our brokers bring projects to us, but they know what we're looking for and what not to, and that comes from, again, beating them to the punch, and it's the mailers. It's sending out mailers. It's pulling on doors, opening up the doors to these facilities, talking to the person behind the desk. Sometimes it's the owner. Sometimes it's the property manager that can give you access to the owner, and having a discussion with them to say, hey, we'd like to buy your facility when it's time to do so, and working out a price between them, between you and the seller directly, versus something that has a bunch of eyeballs on it in a crazy market where they know that they can get a lower cap rate.
So what is a typical cap rate? I mean, it's kind of a weird answer because it's nationwide. It differs.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, what is a typical cap rate you see from a broker, and what's the typical cap rate that you buy at?
Yeah, and layer on top of that Class A, Class B, Class C. So the Class A facilities, as we mentioned, crazy compressed cap rates. Their cost of capital is zero. It's cash or 2% from their credit lines, and so they can buy at a 4 or 5 cap. We're seeing a lot of these, Class A facilities. All things being equal, saying stabilized 75, 80%, 85%, say right around a 5 cap or below that if it's stabilized. We're selling, and we've seen these facilities trade. We develop these facilities, and some of ours have been trading when they sell at certificate of occupancy, meaning it's been built. We haven't rented one unit yet. And a REIT will come by and buy that facility based upon the future cash flow and give us a 6 to 6.5 cap on the future NOI.
100% pro forma.
100% pro forma, yeah, because they know. I mean, they've got our feasibility study and everything else.
Well, they got the data.
They got the data on it. Yep.
Yeah.
So all that aside, let's say it's a stabilized facility, in a top MSA, Class A, 5, sub 5 in some cases, whereas a Class B facility, so it's outside the MSA a little bit. Single story, maybe some climate control, maybe not climate control, not the savviest manager, a little older facility, a little bit of maintenance, that's trading in that probably 6% range, 7% range, and then 7% and above. If it's a rural, the further out you go, deferred maintenance, first generation property maybe has a lot of 5x5s, which aren't really in favor much anymore. No website, no temperature control, maybe no gravel, no fence, no nothing. You're kind of starting from scratch.
Man, it sounds like these are better returns than apartments.
Yeah, it is. We've seen that.
And less headache.
Over the past 25 years, self-storage average annual returns has been right around 16.85% percent return. Multifamily is about 12.9. Office is just a little over 12, and retail is just a little over 12, and the S&P is 7%. So we would rather be that fish in the pond, which it's a smaller pond, a smaller amount of people fishing in it, and in this unsexy, unglamorous self-storage business of 10 by 10 metal boxes on concrete slabs, but it's outperforming the rest of the market by multiple basis points.
The math works really well.
Yeah.
Tony
and that's
York.
The sexy part.
Yeah. There has to be. No one's taking pictures on Instagram of their storage.
Except me.
What are the core, Tony York is asking, what are your core values?
Oh gosh, Tony, I think first and foremost, call it a core value, but we really just don't know how to do it any other way, and it's just having integrity and making sure that everybody on our staff is operating from that standpoint as well, going back to that, and it's tough to snuff out again in an interview process, but first, if we ever catch wind of that, that's it. This is a marathon for us, it's not a sprint, and if I were to do anything that is improper, somebody's going to find it eventually, and in today's world of social media transparency, that's it. My education business goes away, my investment business goes away, my syndication business certainly goes away, and that's the fuel for anything and everything. So Ignorance is not an excuse by saying, well, I just didn't know. If you're doing something unscrupulous and not operating from a place of integrity, then that's one of them. We put customers' profits, our clients' profits at all levels in our education business, certainly our investor business, and anybody that we deal with over profit. So their profits come first before ours. Leaders eat last. We live and breathe that. So at the end of the day, we are in it for the long haul and to do good by everybody that we serve.
Got it. And then Eddie on Facebook wants to know, do you focus more on building brand new storage units on raw land or on investing in value add opportunities?
Yeah, we'll take them all, to be honest with you. But in the past 2 or 3 years, it's been difficult. The word is out. Wall Street is attracted to self storage because of the stats that I just shared with you. Hedge funds are after self storage and being created to go after self storage as well. And for that reason, we've had a lot of folks that are getting into the business, looking for existing facilities and driving some prices up. It's a little more difficult at the development level for lenders, private equity partners, and all those, to put together a development project. So we've shifted, and because literally for the past 3 to 4 years, we've still been behind in terms of development of self-storage facilities and units across the country. There's been pent-up demand since the last recession. So we shifted into, once we continued to grow our syndication database, then we began going after development projects. But we just started a fund, a $25 million fund that's targeting nothing but existing facilities and acquisitions. And, we learned the lessons from the past 2 recessions. And I wish I had more equity from the last recession, because there's a lot of folks that did get into it early on that weren't able to refinance when things turned during that recession.
Yeah.
And they didn't create value and they had to give their keys back to the bank. Well, this time around, we want to buy them before they go back to the bank. So that's our focus now, along with development.
Gotcha. And M. Smolensky, as someone starting out, what should my first major purpose or move be after I make my first wholesale deal?
After you make your first wholesale deal, well, I think we kind of mentioned that M, and that is to look to either bring in a partner, do a joint venture with somebody, or perhaps if you have gained enough money from that first wholesale deal, to get into a syndication, invest passively in somebody's either a REIT or a syndication, and learn about the business before you dive in. Either way, it's probably a partnership or a syndication or something along those lines before you dive in 100%.
And it sounded like if someone invested in your syndication, they get to look at all the numbers and learn the process.
Correct. Yeah, we set up we have a portal, and everything goes in, all our due diligence. They have access to all the folders. They can pull down a number of documents. Some of them are read only, but then we kind of go the extra mile, and we do webinars on a regular basis because we come from an education standpoint. And so on a quarterly basis, we're doing webinars to teach our folks about the biz as well.
So it sounds like, I could take a large chunk of cash and invest it in a course, or I can just invest it in your syndication and get a return on that money while learning.
And I would say both. And I'm not trying to get everybody's money on both sides, but in order to do business with us, you probably should do business with us. Meaning, if you're going to invest with us on the syndication side, you should educate yourself on the industry. So whether you get my course or learn from our website or the free resources and tools, it's great to attend one of our webinars and see the figures, the facts and the figures on the upside. But if you don't know what that means, or if you can't really grasp it, you don't really know if it's a good thing or not. Just by judging my face on a webinar and how excited I get, you might think that's the case, but is it really? So you really should understand the asset class. And our investors, we stress, put these deals to the test, put us to the test. Follow us for 4, 5, 6 months, a year, and look at the deals that come out. Look at our track record, how we're not only, there's a whole lot of folks out there, Steve, right now with wind in their sails. They've had a good economy, and they're really good at raising private capital, but they haven't been around many as long as us, where we've bought, we've developed, we've created value, we've exited, and we've made those returns. We've meet or beat our projections. That's a small group. At the top that has had that type of success that you can point to.
I haven't done this as long as you have, but I did make it through, the 2007, 2009 recession. So I can't say that I know everything, but I can tell you that I got to see
that is one heck of an education for those of us that survived through it.
How things go down in the bad times. And then Jeremy wants to, well, first he says Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
If you had to start over, what would you do differently to fast track to where you are now?
Yeah, I think early on, I don't know if everybody else suffers from this like I do as an entrepreneur. I just wanted to do it all myself. You know, I kind of wanted the limelight a little bit. I guess a little bit of pride, a little bit of ego, and didn't want to. That's kind of the way I operated my whole life, and I just wanted to do it on my own, not bring in partners. And so I probably hesitated, waited too long. I had a mentor of mine many, many years ago with gray hair who said, I don't know why you wouldn't do everything with a partner. He said, I never would have gotten to the place that I was if I hadn't begun partnering from my very first deal, and from the capitals, the spreading of risk, the intellectual capital of having partners come in. There's no way that I ever would have had the success I had I not brought partners in. And so that was right about the time when I realized that, okay, and after having one small partnership, it just didn't go very well, Yeah. We were friends when we started, and it was just a small little deal on a house, and realizing I don't think I want to, risk that anymore. But then understanding, when we get into the syndication side or even in joint ventures, that just, again, picking the right person, sticking to your core values. It is a marriage. And then for your limited partners, that doesn't have to be a marriage. We just limit their voices, and they can come along and write a check and come along with us. I don't have to like them to do business with them at that standpoint, but they just have to understand who we are and what we're all about, and get on board with what we're doing. And so recognizing that picking the right people as partners on the GP side, but then having limited partners that are at arm's length, that freed me up. Just knowing that freed me up to then just open the floodgates and go into more joint ventures and other partnerships.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I look back on is I always operated initially on the scarcity mindset.
Yep.
Like if I tell Scott this, he's going to beat me in this game. And then I learned, took way too long to figure this out. If I compare notes with Scott, we both learn faster.
Right. Yeah. And most of those people aren't going to go out and do it either.
Right.
You're
There's that as well. Yeah. So great point. So I don't see any other questions at the moment, so we'll keep tuning into that. So what, I guess, what is your purpose? I know we kind of talked about for building houses, but what keeps you going? There are days where we get punched in the mouth, right? There was that whole, toilet paper crisis last year. Like, what keeps you going when things get tough?
Yeah. I think it is that we recognize our purpose, and we recognize our responsibility, and our goals now are more measured in the amount of houses that we build and the lives impacted and the people that we bring on our trips. We're doing 2 trips a year now, building 3 houses each. And the goal at some point is probably to flip the script and spend 80% of my time on the mission field and taking people doing that, and 20% in the business, just kind of overseeing it at this point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I have a feeling, learning what I did in the last 2 recessions, that this next one, when it ever happens, that'll be our last land grab. And so for that 5 to 6 year period, we'll be buying a lot, developing a lot, and then exiting on the upside again on the bottom of the bell curve on that one, and then sail off into the sunset, so to speak, but sail off onto the mission field. So knowing now, the grind, as long as I got air in my lungs and I have the ability to do this, we'll continue to do so, because now, there's I have staff that are supporting their families, and we have people that are waiting for houses, and the better that we do, our success is somebody else's miracle.
Yeah, that was one of the best lines I heard from the last
Mr.
CG.
Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah, Mr. Jeff Hoffman was crazy. What is your biggest struggle right now? We talked about, there's the human capital component, and it sounds like you've got that mostly figured out. So what's your biggest struggle today?
Yeah, I think still playing traffic cop. I have Tourette's syndrome, and no offense to anybody who has Tourette's syndrome, but I say yes to everything. So a deal comes across my desk, and I just want to do it. If it is a deal, we vet it, and my underwriter comes back, and I still have to recognize that there are limitations. There's limitations to the amount of time that I have, and even though I've got good lieutenants, there's still, you're the face of the business, and there's stuff you have to do. There's stuff at the top of the business that I have to do, and
we still bottleneck in one way or another.
Yep, and I am the bottleneck, and that's we're getting crowded up there, and so just understanding what that looks like, and being able to just saying no, and recognizing that that time. We just got back from Mexico. We were on the mission field there, and I was in California and Seattle before that, and I slept in my bed 2 nights over the past 30 days, which is uncommon, but that's even though I love what I do, and for the purpose that we have. Probably can't keep continuing to do that at my age, and so just needing to slow down and say no to some projects, even if they are good.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because when we first start, there's no opportunities,
right?
And we're just like, man, if we could just get one transaction, one deal, one property, and you get to a point where like there's so much opportunity. How do you properly filter? How do you say no to keep your sanity?
Yeah.
So are you doing
Yeah,
to
well,
say no to keep your sanity?
And that pain from not having opportunities or even struggling financially in the beginning of starting your own business is still there, and so I think there's a piece of that has me tethered to do that. So I think right now it's my wife speaking into one of my ears, saying, "Okay, this is enough." But it was almost an intervention many years ago. I went through Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach, and
Great program.
Oh my gosh, incredible program! And you outline, you start baby steps. When you check out at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you check out. You're done. Nothing going back to. And then your weekends, and then you schedule your vacations ahead of time. Otherwise, 24/7, 365.
It won't fit in anywhere.
It won't fit in. So I think it's just having that mindset, and I did put those parameters in place, those boundaries and those guardrails, and I stick to that. There's emails that pile up, and there's things that begin to pile up, and people that are upset with me because I'm not getting back to them. But I'm thankful that I put those in. Otherwise, it would be back to 24/7, 365.
I do know that pain. There are people that are upset that I haven't gotten back to their emails.
Yeah.
When did you go through Strategic Coach?
Oh gosh, that was probably back in 2007, I think. Yeah, about 2006,
Oh, it's been around that
2007.
long, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through it, I want to say in 2017 through 18. And that was when I was going through it because it was 4 times a year. I don't know if it's still the way it is.
I don't know if it is either, but that's what I was doing. 4 times a year, driving to Chicago and meeting.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm done traveling. I'm not traveling anymore. And then, whatever you say, it doesn't matter if you say I'm going to travel less. You say the word travel. Travel's gone up.
Yep.
What is your superpower?
Oh gosh, I would have to say it probably is the ability now, believe it or not, to say no and be okay with it. And with that comes preparation and building a team around me. So we got the team in place, and just staying true to that, knowing that I do have limitations. My family comes first. Our mission comes first. And having put that in place, I guess it's the most fresh in my mind because, as we mentioned at the top of this, within this past year, we got to the place where we built a rock solid team now, and now we're teaching and showing other people how to do that within our mastermind and our education businesses, and I think we got it figured out.
Awesome. What's the greatest lesson you've learned?
I think not over leveraging. If I go back to the very beginning stages, even though everything was going well, nobody ever thought Lehman Brothers would fall, and we would head into the recession, and we thought, well, that'll never happen again like that. And all of a sudden, the pandemic hits, and we have a lockdown, and all of a sudden we went off the cliff again. But this time I wasn't over leveraged, and so that was probably the greatest lesson, is not to get in that place again where I am susceptible to anything out of my power occurring in the economy.
Yeah, it's interesting because at that time, every book I read was leverage, right? If you put 10% down, but the property doubles in value, right? It's a 20x return or whatever.
Yep.
And what I got to learn during the recession was how real wealth operated. And I'm not saying it's the right way, but getting these proof of funds of millions of dollars, right? I had one client with 18 million. I'm getting stuff from Blackstone for 865 million in the proof of funds. It's like, this is how really wealthy people operate.
Correct.
It's not the maximize your leverage. Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah, all we need to do is follow the model. The playbook's out there from the big guys, as you just mentioned.
Right, and that's kind of like what Warren Buffett says. You guys are distracted by this and that. Like, here's what works, and that's how he built his entire.
Yeah, he says, if I don't understand it, I won't invest in it. And I think more people should do their due diligence before they do so.
Yeah. And is there a book you've gifted more than any other?
I'd have to say right now it's Traction. We've given that out to more business owners and budding entrepreneurs and anything else. If it isn't Traction, they need to figure out that they need to have a system to run their business. Otherwise, the business is going to run them. Yeah.
And I'm actually sending Jaden on my team to Empire.
Yeah.
So it's actually going to be in a couple of weeks in Atlanta. So I'm excited because we run everything on Traction now.
Yep.
But I'm really excited to see what Eddie Wilson and Gary Harper have in for us.
Yeah, those guys got it down.
They do know what they're talking about. So let's see here. Sorry. You think eventually I figure out how to do this. All right. So I don't see any more questions. So I want you to think about what you want to leave the listeners with. What do you want them to walk away with? All right. Some last thoughts. I'm going to make a couple of quick announcements.
Sure.
Guys, if you get value today, please like, subscribe, share, or comment. The more we tell the algorithms that this is quality content, the more people can actually reach. So please help us reach other people. And then we do have our all-day sales training coming up on December 10th, where we talk about our sales process from the first time we talk to the homeowner until we actually close the contract. how we were able to buy more houses. Hundreds of people have entrusted us to help them. Love to help you as well. And we do have our Black Friday special coming up. We'll be announcing it tomorrow. Do stay tuned. And next week we got Robert Wensley with Investor Lift. And he's going to be talking about his adventure and how he was able to launch that amazing program. So what are the last thoughts you'd like to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I think ultimately I find myself as an encourager only because I think there's so much negativity out there. And there's a whole lot of folks. I learned from Jim Rohn many, many years ago. He talked about, if you've got a whole bunch of people that are dragging you down and they don't want you to succeed, then you need to weed the garden. Yeah. And, get rid of those friends that aren't lifting you up and encouraging you and cheering you on, because all they want to do is feel better about themselves by tearing you down and not
subconsciously. Not intentionally.
Not intentionally.
But they are doing it.
Yep, and putting those seeds of doubt in to make you think twice about going out and doing that, because then what would happen with them if you're up here and they're still down here? So I would just encourage you, if you're looking to go out and get started in real estate in the business, and continue to plug along, flex that risk muscle and understand that you're going to be told no a lot. I mean, entrepreneurs and real estate investors, we get told no a lot. And so get used to that. But every no is closer to a yes. That's just not a cliche. But get that help. If there is a roadblock, there's probably somebody that has an answer. And if you continue to hit those roadblocks, then, for me, and just where I come from in my faith, and I realize that there's somebody on the other side of that door pushing back, and I probably shouldn't, bull or run through that door. It's probably, I'm being saved from probably a mess. And so it's knowing how hard to push, how far to take something before saying no, but not giving up too soon and succumbing to your own insecurities or doubt, or the doubt that other people are putting in your mind.
It's that serenity prayer.
That's the serenity prayer, 100%.
Yeah. How can someone get a hold of you?
Best way is all things self-storage is at selfstorageinvesting.com. That's got my contact information. And for those that are looking to learn more about the business, we have lots of free resources and white papers, data on the industry, enough to get you excited, enough to get you started, and certainly the other resources if you want to dig in a little bit further.
Yeah, and I'm excited because my team wants to talk to you about some opportunities. So I'm excited to just kind of be a fly on the wall to see how this goes with our team.
I'm excited to learn about more opportunities that your team has.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it. It was
my
a blast.
pleasure.
Thank you guys for watching.